can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Winsted is late to the fair. They promised to bring us some fairness and quality. Promised to bring us some fairness and quality. Promised to bring us some fairness and quality. Winsted is further behind. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Winsted is late to the fair. They promised to bring us some fairness and quality. Promised to bring us some fairness and quality. Promised to bring us some fairness and quality. Let's all get out to the polls. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Winsted is late to the fair. They promised to bring us some fairness and quality. Promised to bring us some fairness and quality. Promised to bring us some fairness and quality. Winsted is further behind. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Winsted is late to the fair. They promised to bring us some fairness and quality. Promised to bring us some fairness and quality. Promised to bring us some fairness and quality. Let's all get out to the polls.
Hello everybody, this is Brian O'Haron. This is number 8 in our series on how to run the town like a business, the business like a business, and we have 13 altogether. This is a pre-election version. I put a few ads in the paper, so maybe we'll have a few new visitors tonight and a few new viewers. And I put signs up all over town, and some of them have been taken down, but that's okay. That's the way elections go. So tonight, again, we're going to pack a lot in here. It's the pre-election version, so I'll put off till next week some more of some of the other stuff I was going to do, and we'll just talk tonight. We're going to talk mainly about the great opportunity we have. You'll see a rainbow in back of me with a pot of gold, and you know, we have an opportunity here. We heard about this when we were children in all our kids' books, and now it's becoming a reality here 70 years later. So we will talk a bit about the opportunity for the quantum leap that I've been mentioning for the last 7 shows. The first thing I'd like to go over is the agenda, and that's I'm going to have some comments. Then I'm going to talk after a bunch of comments about my involvement in the development over the last 2.5 years or so, a brief history of the development in town, a development status, where we stand on the development, because there's a lot of misconceptions about where we stand and what the priorities are. I'll try to clear a bit of that up tonight. The developer's approach to addressing this opportunity with the town. A bit about who I think is best to help us in the future in dealing with the developers and the big opportunity that we have coming forward. I want to talk a bit about the criteria again for selecting the candidates that I've chosen. I'll put up the candidates that I think again are best to help us get through this town, hoping that you'll vote for them and get the word around to vote for businessmen in the election tomorrow. And then a bit about my little handout of rose that I talked about last time. I want to remind you that tomorrow is the day we vote, if we can move over to the slides again. And Tuesday, November 6th, Pearson School, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Remember, 6 a.m. is when the polls open. You can go down there and vote at 6 a.m. and then they close at 8 p.m. And I'm suggesting that you vote for businessmen to help us get this town back on the road again. I did see a few days ago one of my neighbors, and I asked him if he watched the program, and he said, yes, he did. And he said, I said, what do you think about it? And he said, well, a lot of what you're saying is common sense. And what I want to put up here now is my motto that I've been putting around in my courses and my management things around the world, and that is common sense is not common. Not many people have common sense, and not enough people have common sense, yet everybody thinks everybody has common sense. So I'd like you to keep that in mind tonight when we go through our slides. The next thing I'd like to put up, we're always talking about intelligence, and you know, I dealt in an industry where everybody was really intelligent. I mean, there was computer business from day one, and then all the application people, NASA and Navy and Air Force and all the businesses around the world, they were pretty intelligent people too, or they wouldn't have been involved in the computers to start with. And they all had big challenges. So intelligence is common. It's everybody has some degree of intelligence, some more than others maybe, maybe not. But experience is not common. And that's why I'm bringing your attention to that, because what we need here is experience. And if we can get a combination of experience and intelligence, that's what we want. If we get intelligence without experience, it can be dangerous, and it could hurt us more than it can help us. So be careful of the intelligence trap, I call it. This is our program to date. So far, I think before I get to that, okay, well, we'll talk about that now. Program, so far what we've covered is Winsted over the last 10 years has been breaking even, and it's been falling behind, as you heard in the little song that my wife and I just sang. I did Woody Guthrie there. I just took an old folk song, changed a few words, and made it into a new folk song about Winsted. And what we say in there is, well, Winsted's getting further behind. So what I'd like to see is, right now, Winsted has zero savings over the last 10 years. We're about breaking even. We went over that in the last shows. So we need more revenue. We've got to get an increase in our revenue growth. We need businessmen to help us get that in this election tomorrow. And we need a 5-year business plan. As soon as they get in office, they better start working on a 5-year business plan. And as I mentioned to you, it means changing the charter. I want to remind you again, before I move ahead, that there are no safety problems in the school system according to an insurance investigation that was that was conducted and was reported in the Waterbury Republican. So we can rest assured that we have a little more time to deal with that issue. And I keep getting told that perhaps tonight at the Selectmen meeting at 7 o'clock, that's on Channel 13, that they're going to try to put this, there may be an attempt and there may not be an attempt to move this bond package to a referendum in 30 days. I don't think that's wise. And my view is, if the shape that this bond package is in, and remember, I do think we do need some of the work done. It's a question of when and how much and what priorities there are over the next years, and what can wait and what can't wait until we get some increase in our revenue. But if people try to move it to referendum tonight, I don't think you should vote for them tomorrow. So you make up your own mind, but have a look at it and see what happens. Yeah, I think it's a waste of time going to a referendum right now on this with a new board coming in and with the package in the shape it's in right now. I'm just going to remind you about the package quickly, and that is the total town commitment will be $56,040,772. The bond package itself is broken into two pieces, the town piece and the school piece, and they add up to $42,484,000 with the latest Dick's figures. And the interest, I was a little confused last week, I'm sorry, but the interest is $13,560,772 as I originally thought. I got a little confused on that. You know, I'm getting a little older and it gets a little tiring here getting prepared for these shows. But and anyway, so what we have here is after we take that, we subtract the two, then we got 50. We add these two together for $56,044,772. Then we subtract the grants that we're expected to get. That doesn't mean we will get them. That's the things that we're putting in the plan. Whether we get them or not at the percentage, we won't know. We don't know that for sure. And then that leaves us with $34,588,772, which, as I told you in previous weeks, is an increase of 24% from 4 months ago when we first received the first set of numbers. I'm going to put up my old friend, the normal distribution curve that I have showed you in the past. and because tonight we're going to be talking more about things around this. Brian is, if you can show this chart, Brian is in the middle of this curve. Brian believes that we should be very careful about our environment, but we should also be very careful about our own future as well. And if we have needs as town residents, then we have to make sure that we meet those needs, or that we give up those needs. And if we need to meet them, that might mean that we need some money, and we need to balance between the extremes of keeping our environment in pristine shape and keeping the needs of our residents. And by the way, this is not my decision. This is the town taxpayers' decision on how you want to do that. Now I'm going to start getting into the new development stuff, and I'm going to start out by saying that when I attended the meetings, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes, of all the development meetings, I attended every one up until the public meetings on the Highland Ridge golf course, it's called now, and estates, 450 houses and a big 18-hole beautiful golf course, top of the line, both houses and golf course. The experts came in from all over the place, all over the states, and it's a little tricky here. I keep having trouble with this stand, but okay, are you focused all right on that now? And okay, and my daughter's here again helping me. Thanks. She's not mad because I put her picture up last week in her Halloween costume 20 years ago. Anyway, there is no additional water quality problem for Highland Lake. The experts came in, I listened to them all, and I'm going to tell you about my background in a few minutes so you know that I have the ability to understand these people. But there are no additional water quality problems. Matter of fact, the experts that came in, and the main expert was from Yale University, and they came in and they said, look, even if the developers did no mitigation, there probably wouldn't be any impact on Highland Lake. Not only wouldn't there be any impact on Highland Lake, but there wouldn't be any impact on the surrounding wells, because that was a big area of concern by the residents, and I don't blame them for being concerned about that. And there would be no real impact on Canavo Spring. That was another issue that came up. They talked about it as nauseum, and all kinds of people were there, and in the end, basically, it was pretty well agreed that there wouldn't be any impact on those, and that's one of the reasons it got through the inland wetlands and it got through the planning and zoning and got their permit. So I want to really make that point, because I think that there's a lot of people that weren't at the meetings that really don't understand that. So that's the story. Any questions, give me a call or go down and read the public record. It'll take you months to read it, but it's down there, and you can read all the testimony on this whole thing. Now, I'm going to talk now a bit about my relative experience and why I'm qualified. Because the first thing people will say when they see this is, "Oh, Brian doesn't know what he's talking about. You know, he lives up on the lake, and he was born in Torrington, and you know, he doesn't understand." So I'm going to talk a bit about my background, only because I have to so you will understand the things I'm going to say for the rest of the meeting here. Okay, now. I started out in Torrington. I worked way through with entrepreneurs. I was more of an entrepreneur worker since I was 11 than I was a student. I wasn't the best student in the world, although I did have a photographic memory, and that got me through school. But I worked in the tobacco fields. I worked in a bowling alley setting up pins since I was 11 years old. I worked in restaurants. I did it, you name it, I did it when I was going through school. And then I worked my way through college the same way, probably had 30 different jobs. And one of them was cleaning out the petri dishes in the lab, and that wasn't a healthy thing, but I did it. And I got a degree in mathematics. And then I became a systems analyst on the West Coast, mainly in big military operations, one of which was the NASA moon stuff in the early days. And, you know, I did work around all the astronauts and all the key people in that program in several different capacities over the years as I progressed in my career. I was a corporate executive for many, many years, since I was 30 years old, and worldwide. That's what the WW means, worldwide. And I was a troubleshooter for all kinds of technical system problems and company problems, getting machines out of factories, all kinds of things in all kinds of environments. Now, it would take me a day to sit with you and tell you all my experience, because I did, you know, I like to say my granddad, he worked in a knife factory, my great-granddad, and he sharpened knives all day, and he did quite well. But I did just the opposite. I got out around the world, and I traveled 10 million miles and worked for several companies and for a lot of different applications, and that's where my background came in, and I have a lot of experience with large and small corporations. My environmental experience, here's my little chart about my environmental experience, if we can switch over to that, and that is I attended all but one of the Highland Ridge and St. Anne's Country Club. It's now called well, it's called Highland Ridge and Golf Course or something now. They keep changing the name on me, and I can't keep up with it. But anyway, and then I submitted green papers for the related public hearings, which I gave out to all the town committees. I went to the selectmen 3 or 4 times a year and a half ago, and I've been everywhere with that. So they're pretty well known. There's a copy of them over in the town hall, in the town clerk's office, if it's still there. If not, get a hold of me and I'll get you one. But now, what is my environmental past? And when I sat through the meetings for about 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years, most people, especially on Highland Lake, didn't know about my background as an environmentalist, and they thought I was a gardener or something, I guess, because I was always out in the yard working on the garden. But anyway, I fished the lakes all over throughout this area as a kid. We bicycled. I went with Al Kuczynski, who's now in the Softball Hall of Fame in Connecticut, and he used to catch fish with his bare hands. I'll never forget that. We got up early in the morning, we got the worms, and we walked, biked, or hitchhiked, or whatever, to all the lakes around here, some of which now are full of mud. But then over my career, at one point in time, when I was about 40, I was part owner, president, chief operating officer of an environmental systems company for 7 years. And I said this in my green paper when I submitted it at the end of these meetings. And what we did is we produced electronic water quality monitoring equipment that was used all over the world. We manufactured it, we designed it, manufactured it, and sent it out all over the world. We operate out of San Diego, California. And this stuff was used by oceanographers and water quality experts in salt water down to a depth of 4 miles and everywhere. And it was all kinds of things: pH, sound velocity, salinity, depth, and pH, and everything else. So I've got quite a bit of experience. Now, I'm not a limnologist, but I do know and have worked with a lot of these people everywhere, and I'm very familiar with expert testimony in this area. So when I sat through the meetings, I knew what they were talking about, and I could sort of tell the amateurs from the pros. And I learned an awful lot. Now, during those meetings, I don't think I said one word, or maybe only at the breaks, but I didn't say anything to anybody. I just sat and listened like a systems analyst and a businessman does to try to find out objectively exactly what was happening with this development. I want to say that I have no connection with the developers, and I have no connection with any other developers in this town, as far as our money comes from our family and investments that I earned over since working since 11. And I do have a large investment in the town, however, in that I have a home here and I pay taxes here, and I bring visitors here from all over the world, and we do things around the area. So I am concerned. I do have a lot of relatives here. As I told you once before, I'm a McGrain, and I look out for my relatives because I love my relatives, and I'm proud of my heritage in this area, and I do want to spend time on it. So I was involved in these. I did go to all the meetings, and I did listen to all the testimony. And then, at the end, the very last paper that was submitted to in the wetlands was my paper. And then I went to planning and zoning. I listened to all their stuff, and then I submitted them a paper. And basically, what it boiled down to in the end was that this development was going to do less damage to the lake or the wells or the Canavo Springs than we already had around the lake already to this day that was there long before we talked about the development. And if you want to see a list of that information, just go see my green papers and the letter I wrote to the inland wetlands and put in the public record, and I listed all the problems around the lake that need to be addressed. I can't say they're exact, I can't say they're all exactly right, but they're what I heard in the meeting expressed by all the people there. I didn't make one of them up. I heard it by everybody who was in there. So That's what my experience is there. Then I sat through the development meetings, as I just told you, and I went through all that. So I did write papers. I don't think you find too many other papers that were put in there by anybody. I mean, everybody put some papers in. There's a lot of stuff in there, amateurs and professionals. So you can read those and really get a good feel for it. But I'm just trying to give you the bottom line today, because I'm going to be talking more about this, and I want you to know that this was very thoroughly looked at. Now, what's the progress of this development right now? The progress of this development is, this is pretty much a shorthand version because we don't have much time here, but if you go to the slide, it's roughly somewhere up around $300 million investment by the developers. It's somewhere maybe a little less, maybe a little more, depends on a lot of things over the next 8-9 years, but that's the estimate they gave me when I called them and said, roughly, what is your investment going to be, soup to nuts here, to get all these 2 developments up and running, sold, and handed over to the town, so to speak, in the tax base. And the Highland Ridge Estates and St. Anne's Country Club, the approvals have been received by the town, and I even see on TV where people say, wow, they got all their permits. That's not true. They do not have all their permits for that. They still have to get a permit from the state. Well, I guess I can't tell whether it's 1 permit or 2 permits, but they need the Army Corps of Engineers to approve, which they're working on now and have been for quite a while, and the Department of the Environment, DEP. They're still working on the permits there. They do not have them. And if you were a developer and you had a $300 million investment, and I don't think you would want to start before you got all your permits. Now, they have started a few things, but any major investment will not occur on this project until the permits are done. All right? Now, the second project is called Winchester Estates, and where that one stands is going the wrong way, I'm going backwards here. Okay, Winchester Estates, where that stands is they have received an approval for the town to do Winchester Estates, which is right next door to the other development, and the Inland Wetlands has approved it. Now, they went to Planning and Zoning X months ago, and they got denied, and probably for good reason. I don't know all the reasons for the denial, but it didn't conform to the things that Planning and Zoning wanted to see happen, so that was denied. So right now, that is in the process of being resubmitted by the developer, resubmitted to the Planning and Zoning. Don't ask me when it's going to happen. Everybody always tells me it's a days and a week away, but it doesn't seem to be. Some history about this is that for decades here, and I called Ray Carpentino and talked to him the other day, and I ended up sending emails back and forth, but basically I got a nice idea from him what happened in the past, and over decades there's been interest in this 500 acres that was owned by local people, investors, and people were wondering, I guess they had it for sale a few times and this and that, but anyway, long before the present developers got involved, the country club aspect of this was mentioned by the town. I think it was one of the last town planning people mentioned that, hey, wouldn't it be nice to have a country club up there? This was long before these developers got involved. And there was a positive reception by the town for that, and the town was in favor and encouraged developers to think about having a development with a golf course there. So the developer's approach over the last many years was encouraged by the town. And Ray Carpentino encouraged it, the town manager at the time encouraged it, and a lot of the commissions encouraged it, and there were a lot of positive people trying to get this thing to move along because they saw it as an opportunity to help get more business into town as well as to grow the tax base, because all these people that are going to live in there hopefully will do more business in town and help the town prosper and maybe even attract other businesses to the town. Somebody was down in Torrington on Saturday and told me that it looked like Christmas down there with so many cars and so many people shopping, and it's really booming and bustling down there. So we may not want that here. That's not my decision, but if we do want that here, then we're going to have some revenue and we're going to have to grow a little bit. But anyway, everybody was very cooperative from the beginning, and they were all working together with the developer to see if they could come up with positive plans and move the thing forward. They encouraged the developer, as a matter of fact, and he actually said he would do the golf course. He didn't come in here saying, I want to do a golf course. It was the town's idea to have the country club. Now, and the upscale over age 55 housing development. And the developer talked to the town over these meetings and everything and came up with various financial and configuration concessions to the town. Whenever I saw it, and I've been in every meeting, it was very positive. A lot of things went on outside the meeting that I didn't see, but I consider the development and his consultants to be a very professional group, and I think a lot of people in town agree with me on that. And whenever I talk to most people in town, I can tell you they're in favor of this approach if it's done properly and passes all the right qualifications and gets its Army Corps and DOE approvals, then they're in favor of it. There are some people who aren't, of course. The high-end first class, it's a high-end first-class development. The average price of the homes are going to be $350,000, and that's pretty good. They have given us a lot of opportunity here. They say if we want to, we can have the golf course public. For some reason now the town has got a little glitch, and they have to look into that and see if it's possible to do it. They're going to have Robbers Cave remain historical. They're not going to touch that. They're going to do all their own infrastructure at their expense and run the water and sewer lines down very close to Torrington, which will help the whole corridor on the way to Torrington be developed in the future. And down the old Route 8 there. And there's just plenty of things that they're going to give us some, they've agreed, and it hasn't been finalized yet, but they're interested in giving us some land for a fire department down that end of the place. They have age-restricted housing, which will be minimal impact on the schools. There's so many positive things about this. Now, I'm not going to sit here and name all the negative things, but there are some things that people are concerned about, and we, together with them, have to work on those issues. But you're not going to get somebody to come here with a $300 million development, as I said in the past, with no risk. So we have to mitigate the risk by working together, and I'm going to be talking a bit more about that today. Now, in the past, we have had a lot of political and town support, and I've seen it with my own eyes. We've had most town leaders, there are some exceptions, who are in favor of this approach, even to this day, and always have been in the past, providing it's done responsibly. We have seen no evidence yet that it's not going to be done responsibly. Are there some problems that have to resolve? Yes. Are there some concerns about whether they can sell the houses? Yes. But basically, their experts came to the meetings and told us they could sell the houses. So who am I to argue with them? I mean, what we need to do is get in there and help them sell the houses, make it worth their while, people's while to come to this town and to buy the houses. The Republican Town Committee has been very interested in this for years because they know that we need to grow the revenue base. And they've been at all the meetings. They submitted papers into the public sessions and into the legal, open public hearings, they call them. I always want to say public sessions. So they've been very active. The whole town committee, the chairman as well. Some individual Democrats have been very interested in it providing it's done right, and everybody else agrees it's done right, and it passes the things. And Ms. O'Brien was one when she was the head of the Board of Education. She was very interested because she knew they need the money. We need money. My view of the Board of Education is not an education problem, it's a business problem. And we're going to talk about that maybe in a week or two when we talk some more about the environment. But I think what we have is a business problem there. You might not agree with me, but she was interested in that aspect of it. The Independent Party Town Committee, they agree with the whole approach, providing it doesn't overwhelm the schools. And the Taxpayer Association president, the same way, okay? So I want to point out that there's a lot of people in town that are in favor of this approach, and you can talk to them yourself and have them come to your meetings and explain it. And there's a few key people, who really don't want to see it. I'm not going to name any names here, but if you talk to them, just ask them, do they want to see it? Now, and some people will say, yes, we want to see it, but we want it done right, and we want it done perfectly. But we all want it done right. There's nobody here who wants to see it done wrong. I haven't found one person like that yet. Everybody wants it done right, and we don't want to keep throwing obstacles in the way of these people. We want to get in there, work together, and make it all happen. Now, I want to point out right now, before I go any further, that we have the highest. I have the highest respect for the manager of this town, right? So anything I say here, in no way should be interpreted that I don't have respect for the managers of this town. I have very high respect. They are trying to do an excellent job, and they struggle with the resources available to them under the most trying conditions. I went to the police meeting a few weeks ago. I know what the fire people are going through, the fire department. They're a very good bunch of people, highly respected in town. I've always been very encouraged by them, and all the services in that respect. The Public Works, very impressive people, and very close to them. I see them do a lot of things, and I'm very proud of them. And I've talked to all the commissions. I think they all want to see the right thing happen. They all want to do the right thing. So I want to point out to you that what these people need, these managers need the air cover. They need air cover. They need the people in the selectmen jobs and on the commissions to make it, provide them what they need to do their jobs. And mainly that's getting some revenue in town and getting a plan and getting some businessmen into the selectmen seats that can help them run the thing and give them what I call air cover. So let's give them the board of selectmen that they need to do the job. Let's get the businessmen in tomorrow, and I put my list has somebody from each party, so we're not really favoring a party. Some parties, as we'll talk about later, are stronger than others and have more businessmen and have more seasoned businessmen. But now what I want to say is, who better to work with a $300 million development over the next 10 years, move it along and have a symbiotic relationship with it, than the people that already have a very good working relationship with the developer. And I just put a list of a whole bunch of people up there who have a good working relationship with the developer. There are a few people that have no relationship at all with the developer, and some who have an antagonistic relationship with the developer. So it's going to be hard for them to help us, okay? So I think that a positive, well-meaning group of very motivated businessmen is what we need. And they, preferably those that can get along with the developer and understand the developer's problems and understand what the developer needs from the town and get the town to provide the developers what they need while the developers are providing the town with what they need. There has to be a symbiotic team relationship with these people. Otherwise, it isn't going to work. So, you know, I worked on a lot of very, very first type projects. I was early on in the internet. I was early on in NASA before anybody got to the moon. I was in some very difficult projects. But we didn't sit around saying why they wouldn't work. We got in and tried to figure out why they would work and how they could work. And we got rid of the people who didn't want to see them work, right? I mean, there's no sense having somebody on the team to get to the moon who didn't want to go to the moon and didn't think it was the right thing to do. Okay, so that wasn't my choice. That was other people's choice. And the same with putting big systems around the world, getting the internet up and running, all kinds of things like that. So I've never been on a simple challenge, and I think that when the challenge is tough, the tough get going. And that's what we need to do. We need to concentrate on success and getting moving. And yes, do we want to have good development, and do we want to have open space? I forget the code name for that now, but yes, we want all that. We want to balance it, and we've always wanted that. And I don't think you're going to find anybody who's going to say, let's put a junkyard in the center of town, or let's take this beautiful open space and put a junkyard. That's not going to happen, okay? So we're moving along on this. We got half the approval, so now we need to finish that, and we need to move on. Or we need to make up our mind that we don't want to do it and stop everybody wasting a lot of time and quarreling over it. We have some people that are running now that have excellent land use and construction backgrounds, and they come from each of the parties. They're not all in one party. One party tends to dominate because they are the other businessmen that are running. But we have those kind of people. Who better to deal with this development over the next 10 years, and to deal with the largest and most prosperous development in the town's history, right? Now, my view is, We don't want educators to do that. Educators, I don't have any problem with educators. I think they should be educating, and they should be getting our schools in shape. They should be getting our grades up. They should be helping us do things in that area. And this requires businessmen. I also think the education side needs businessmen too. We'll talk about that after the election. But right now, I can't overemphasize how bad we need this. And that's all I can do is point it out to you and make sure it sinks in and that you understand. And then, of course, you will make your own decisions, right? So up I come now with my criteria for selection slide again, and that is that I think that when we look at all these candidates, and you still got 24 hours or so, or a little less maybe, to do it, but the criteria for selection is experience running a business or owning or running a business entity. Now, you have all layers of that. You have people who run small businesses and larger business and more commitment. I think the biggest business that's probably now is Mr. Fracasso has a huge business, and he does all up and down the East Coast and out to Ohio, so he's a very seasoned businessman. There are other people that are very close to that. And we have one man who is a very seasoned insurance man, and we have enough risk problems in the town, we know that, so an insurance man who's also a business owner and can help us run a town is not a bad idea right now. And then together, they can all work together. They understand the language, and they understand and have good relationships with the developer one way or another. Some people consider that bad. I don't consider that bad. I think that's good. Since they're part of our team and we're all working together towards the same goal, that it's nice if we can all get along together and work together. So I would think anybody who has not too good a relationship with the developer probably shouldn't be a selectman and probably shouldn't be on the team at this particular point in time. Maybe again in 15 years or 10 or 5 when we're past this critical point, then we can get them back again. The individuals themselves are not a problem. It's their experiences, I pointed out in the first slide, and that we need people that are experienced there and that can put aside their difficulties and can get along with these developers and any other developers and any other people that want to help us in our town. We seem to have a phone call here. Maybe it's one of the people who doesn't get along with the developers. I hope not. Anyway, so now it also helps if these people have displayed a willingness to work with the members of all organizations and individual citizens in a professional and courteous manner. And we've all been treated a little rough sometimes in some of these meetings, and I can understand. I don't begrudge any of the people in the commissions. They do a wonderful job, and they're in there trying, and they're doing it. They have approved these projects, and they sat through hours and hours of testimony, so I give them great credit for that. I sat there with them, and I know how sore your back can get from sitting through those meetings, and I know how tough it is to listen to the same thing over and over and over and over again for a year and a half. So we need people who can still come out of it positive after doing all that. And then we need people who will always live up to their promises, because when you're dealing with a developer and he's dealing with us, we both have to live up to our promises. Now, don't think I'm saying here that people don't make mistakes. The developer will make mistakes, and we'll make mistakes. And we talked in previous shows about moving fast and how people will make mistakes, but we have to get together then. I've had people say to me, Brian, on your shows, you admit that you made a mistake. And I said, well, we're moving fast. I'm up all night. I'm 70 years old, and I'm going to make some mistakes. This TV stuff isn't easy, so but when somebody tells me I made a mistake, I'll fix it and I'll correct it. And when we're working with the developer, we're going to have some big mistakes made, and we're going to have a lot of progress made, and we all got to get in there and put our shoulder to the wheel. So I'm saying let's get people who we know live up to our promises, and let's weed out the people who we know will not live and have not lived up to their promises. Now, you can decide who they are. I'm not going to go through that with you, but we all have our perceptions of that. And then somebody who's always exhibits proof of such, and that you see them over and over again. And I talked to once before about trust but verify, and that when people come to you with ideas and you trust them, and then you verify that their ideas are correct, like we're trying to do with the bond package, and you look at it in detail. And after you do that 5 or 6 times with people, when they come to you the 6th time, you know they're going to have done their homework, because you have been through it with them 5 times already. And and then you're also going to know the ones who are going to come to you the 6th time and still have a messy package that you're not even going to want to look at, and then over time you won't even let them do that anymore. So that's very important, and I want to say that if we can, we should try to do that. Get these people in, and let's have them get on with the job, and let's make it easy for our people to get their job done that work here day to day in the management. Now I'm trying to find my list. You know, every week I have a little problem finding something here, but you know, I got the same list I had in the weeks before, and there are, I can name them. If I can't find my list, I'll just name them off. The first is that the top 5 on my list are the Republicans. And not because I'm a Republican. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not independent. I'm not a Watershed Association person. And I'm not a Taxpayers Association person. But I think at this particular election, the Republicans have the strongest slate, and you should vote for their whole 5 people if you can, because they will work together. They have a relationship with the developer. They have a relationship with other people in the town, and I think they're the best bet right now. Now, if for some reason you don't want to do that, and there are 1 or 2 people you might not want to for one reason or another, then you should also consider the other people that are running. And the people that I have on my list, that I can't find right this minute, is I've got Jay Budahese on there. Jay Budahese is a businessman, has been for 32 years. I've talked to him many, many times in an effort to see how much he really knows about business, and asked him thousands of questions and got thousands of replies. Now, I don't agree with him on everything, but he does have a businessman's mentality. He does have a good relationship with the developer, and he does want to see the town progress. So do I agree with him on everything he wants to do? No. But I do agree with, in general, that he could work as part of the team with other businessmen. The next person that I think is very good and can help a lot is Mr. Pozo. Mr. Pozo has run 3 companies as CEO, his own money invested, and he's up in age now, and I think that's good because he has experiences to offer all the way back to almost the Depression days that will be very helpful to us. Again, I don't agree with him on everything, but I do think that basically he's sound and can work as a member of the team to try to help us, and he does also have very good relationships with the developer. Now, the next person I have on my list is Matthew Brennan. Matthew Brennan is a Democrat. Mr. Pozo is an independent. Matthew Brennan is a Democrat, and I've talked to him an awful lot in the last few months since he's been running for election, and all this. I've been on the TV, and he's been calling me for information and questions, and to debate once in a while and things like that. And I think he has a very good business mind. And I think he's doesn't have the seasoning that the Republicans have, or that Mr. Pozo has. He's not 80 years old and hasn't been through CEO of 3 companies, and hasn't been around for 32 years in business like Jay Budahese. But he's very smart, he's very quick, and he's willing to work, and he's willing to sit and talk to you and debate and try to understand other people's viewpoints. I think he could have a very good relationship with the developer, and so I've been very, trying to encourage people to think about voting for him. The next person that I think can help us here is Art Melcher. Art Melcher is in the Winchester Party. Now, part of the reason I have been suggesting Art Melcher is because Art Melcher did, when I went to the independent town committee and presented my green papers, Art agreed with the whole thing, and that's before they split off, Art and the other people from the independent. So I don't know how Art thinks today, and I don't watch any of the TV programs they're on because I haven't got time to listen to the bantering, but basically Art has his heart in the right place. He's worked for many years, and I think 15 or 20 years in all these committees around town and with the vets and everything, and he wants to do a good job. So I think he can work with these people, and I think he can work with the developer. Now, other people I'm a little less confident of. I think I have 9 people altogether, and the 5 that I mentioned, and plus plus the 5 Republicans, who I still think are the strongest lot and can do the most good for the town, and then Jay Budahezi, who's strong, Mr. Puzo is very strong, and probably has equal experience to some of the Republicans, and he's up in age now, so we have to work with him at his speed, more or less. But I think that'll be, wisdom is a lot better sometimes than a lot of energy. So I'm going with that. And then I mentioned Matthew, and I mentioned Art Melcher. So that's 9 altogether. So you got a good choice there. You should do it. Now, I will tell you that I have to be honest about this. I think that one of the 2 selectmen that were on the Democratic Party did not have the best relationship, and I don't think to this day have the best relationship with the developer, and I'm not sure it can be turned around, because they're more educator than they are developers, and I think it would take them an awful long time to be able to get to the speed where we had that communication, and it hasn't happened to date. So I don't know. If it hasn't happened in 2.5 years, it probably won't happen in the next 2.5 years. So I'm concerned about that. They've done a lot of good in other areas and things, but one of them isn't running anymore. But I really think that you're better off having a businessman than an educator at this particular time in your evolution. In the end, you'll do what you want to do. You'll put in whoever you think is best, and that's what you should do. But I'm just giving you my opinion now on that. Now, the same with the Winchester Party. There are people there, and one of them is the selectman, that don't have the best relationship with the developer. Now, they might argue that, and maybe they do have a better, but as far as I can see, between the developer and the Winchester Party, there isn't a cohesive relationship. There isn't a let's work together spirit. And maybe it's just a misunderstanding there. But, and that's been going on for a while as well. Some of the people in the Winchester Party say, yes, they're in favor of it. The developer says, you don't exhibit that. And I don't want to get in the middle of that, but I'm saying that we haven't got time for that. We got to get on here and get moving. So let's get the people in that can do the job. Again, you follow your own conscience and your own experience, and ask those kind of questions that are important. But I really think that these Republicans this year stand out. Remember, I am not a Republican. I'm a businessman. I want to see this town succeed. And I talk to a lot of people. Probably 90% of the people in town think the same way, right? And we want to do it all responsibly, and I think the developer wants to do the same thing. Now, if the developer disappears for one reason or another, then we all got to work together to go get other businesses and developments in the town, and to do it in a way that that balances our needs as a community. No argument about that. Now, I think I'm going to, since I got a little time left, not much, I probably got 5 minutes, I'm going to put up my did you, will you slide, which I think I've upgraded just a hair since last time. And this says, did you, will you? If you have been in as a selectman, did you do this? If you're going to be a selectman and you're a candidate, you're one of the 9 or one of the other ones that are involved, did you support the bond issue as it stands without fully understanding the ramifications? And the ramifications are what I've been pointing out to you over the last 4 to 5 weeks. I mean, this is not fully baked yet, and it is not in the position really to go to referendum. And I would think that anybody who's been pushing it to referendum, you should really question. And again, if they push it in there tonight, you should seriously consider whether you're going to vote for those people or not. Because I could be wrong here, but I have a strong feeling from the feedback I'm getting all over town that this thing won't pass referendum in the condition it's in right now. I may be wrong, and I apologize if I am, but I'm just trying to say let's not get ourselves in worse shape than we are right now. Let's try to get in better shape. Next question is, did you, selectmen, or will you, selectmen, did you attempt an objective understanding of the major development effort and promote it in a positive way? Right? And they'll tell you. They'll say, yes, I promote it in a positive way, and my actions speak louder than words. Go look in the public record and you'll see where I promoted it. And if I didn't promote it, then you'll know that too. And and the word gets around. So talk to people, try to get both sides of everything. I'm a scientist, as you know. I have a math background, and I've been growing up with technical people. So I like to get a facts on the table, pro or con, get them all on the table, and then evaluate them. And always get the opposite. If somebody says black, try to get somebody that says white, and you'll end up with gray. Thank you. Did you promote responsibly the 5-year planning for the benefit of the town? And as I said last week, nobody's done that. So we need a 5-year plan. So I guess you got to say, will you, whether you're a selectman before or a new one, will you help us get that charter change, get in there the fact that we need a 5-year plan and that we need to get working on it and we need to get moving? That's the question you got to ask. The next one is, did you empower the town managers and their organizations, or did you try to micromanage them? And there was a lot of micromanagement going on, as you all know from watching the meetings. And by the way, I think if you want to watch the meetings again, you can get a copy down here at Channel 13 and probably watch every meeting that they had this year in the Selectmen, and if you want to form any opinions there. Were you gracious and respectful to other selectmen, town personnel, and the public at all times, whether you agreed with them or not? That's very important, because you can't have a positive teamwork if you don't think in that way, especially with all the developers, subcontractors, and all our subcontractors, and all the people that are going to be involved in this big $300 million exercise. Did you respect and treat everyone as equal members of the team? That's very important. Now, I want to tell you a quick story about when I was in Rome, and I had a project that was time critical for a big international telegraph switching system. Joyce and I moved to Rome with the first two kids we had at the time, and I got one person from each airline to be on the team. They each donated one person because the airlines owned CETA, which was the international message switching, and still is for the airlines to this day. And I had to get them all to work in Rome together. So the first thing I did is I got them a good pay package, I got them good per diem, I got them over into Rome, and I said to them, the first one who doesn't act as a team player, and the first one who doesn't help us across the finish line, and the person who gives us the most trouble will be removed from the project. It was that simple. Now, I didn't have any unions to work with, and now I have been, when I was at ICL trying to get machines out of the factory, I was 32 years old, there were 163 unions in the factory. And I had to work to get them all to get this stuff out the door. And there were a lot of non-union people too, and it was very, very difficult, but we got it. We got the stuff out the door, and took a few years, but brought in experts from around the world to help, and everybody learned a lot, and everybody was happy in the end. So that's very important. Now, did you respect and treat everyone as equal members of the team, as I mentioned earlier? That's critical, and they all have to do that, whether they like each other or not. Whether, I mentioned in the past, if you saw Einstein walking down the streets of Princeton, you would have thought he was a bum. He had long white hair, he had no socks on, he had old rumply clothes, etc., etc., etc. And we will run into a lot of that. We'll run into a lot of people that we don't like on our first impression. But we must get to see what their qualities are, whether they can help us, and if they're critical to our evolution, we need to do that. So I got 4 minutes to go, I'm told. So I'm going to put up my rose of thanks, and that is that I think all these people running for office, I thank them very much. I think they all mean well, and they all want to help the town. Some of them might not be up to the caliber of being a selectman, and you might not vote for them. They can then join other commissions. They can join there's other ways they can do things. Some of them just don't have the experience right now. They will in future years. So I'm suggesting that you send them a rose of thanks. Go down to the store, buy a rose, or pick one out of your garden. Send them a rose of thanks, but don't give them a vote. And send the non-business candidates a rose of thanks. And vote for the business candidates, preferably the 9 that I've mentioned already. With that, I'm going to say good night, and I'll see you after the election.
Thank you.